Hi, everyone. I can see people coming in from Reno and Fort Wayne, Indiana, and Frankfort, Indiana, lots of Indiana folks. Welcome to the Google Classroom Overview session as part of the Google Education on Air conference. Thank you all for giving up 1 hour on your Saturday to attend this session. My name is Jennifer Holland, and I'm the Google Apps for Education and Classroom Program Manager. Well, I've been at Google for 8 years. I also taught classes in social business and microfinance. Education has very much been a part of my family and my blood, starting with my grandparents who are educators and on both sides of family, and also my parents. So as some would say, teaching is in the family business. So hopefully you can see the slides. But before we actually begin, I realized you couldn't see me for a second. Before we actually begin, I want to make sure everyone knows what Classroom is. It's a brand new product. It's 10 months old. Last week we had our anniversary, is what we like to say. We announced Classroom on May 6th, 2014, which was Teacher Appreciation Week last year. And we've been incredibly excited with all of the enthusiasm from teachers around the world using Classroom. So really quick, Classroom, hopefully some of you are using it. If you are, use the Q&A feature to let me know how many of you are trying Classroom out now or are interested in learning more and plan to use it next year. That would be really helpful. As you're entering those into the Q&A, for those of you who don't know what Classroom is, it is designed to make it really easy to create and collect assignments in a class. So you can simply assign Google Docs automatically or make a copy for each student. So you don't actually need to battle the copy machine every morning. You can use Google Docs and create those assignments. It helps improve class communication. So teachers can make announcements, they can start discussions, and really enhance the class communication that goes on and really use the power of Google Apps and all of the collaboration functionality. And third, it helps teachers and students stay organized. So Classroom actually automatically creates Google Drive folders for you, so you don't have to worry about the hassle of organizing all of your Drive files. It also, there's one destination that you as a teacher and as a student can go to see all of your assignments in one central place. So before we actually really dive into it, I want to give you just a quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. So here is, I sent out a short form asking attendees what they wanted to hear. And based on those responses, I've tried to tailor the presentation accordingly. So specifically, people who filled out the form wanted a short history lesson on why and how we built Classroom, because it's actually pretty unique. A quick walkthrough of how Classroom actually works. So I have a bunch of slides that I'm going to show you that literally walks you through the mechanics of using Classroom. And then a number of you wanted real life examples and best practices. And then I want to make sure that that I'll leave time for questions. I can already see a few coming in, which is great. So a little history lesson. I know it's Saturday and you probably don't want schoolwork or homework, but let's get into it. So this is a slide from 2005. So technology has fundamentally changed the way that we live. And this slide, this is 2005. It's in St. Peter's Square, and it says Pope John Paul was being laid to rest. And if the next one pops up, there we go. Here's that same shot of St. Peter's Square 8 years later as Pope Francis was announced. See if you can spot the difference between the two photos. It's pretty obvious, right? I'm sure that you've heard lots of people talk about how schools haven't changed enough, and that our classrooms today look too much like what they did 40, 50, 60, 100 years ago. And that tech changes really fast and schools change slowly. However, there's quite a lot of things happening in the industry. And devices are getting cheap enough and easy enough to manage at scale. And getting high-speed bandwidth is much simpler than rewiring to manage at scale. Teachers are also able to get a majority of their content online and leverage everything that's free on the web. Some schools are changing incredibly quick and don't look like the 1940s classroom that you see on the slide. And in order to understand the needs of schools, we needed to spend time talking to teachers, administrators, and parents. So what we did was we kicked off a massive research project and spent a lot of time talking to teachers. And we really quickly found out that they're doing a lot of things that aren't necessarily teaching. So Google had been giving away apps for education for a number of years, and it was a free set of excellent tools, so Gmail, Calendar, Docs, Drive, apps, you name it. And they've been transformative to thousands of schools around the world. But Google really hadn't spent a lot of time asking schools what they needed or wanted, or tried to understand their challenges. Because this free set of tools was given to schools without actually changing any of the nuances so it fit more of that school lens, there were some problems that presented themselves. So in our research, before we built Classroom, we saw 4 things, none of which I think would be a surprise to any of the viewers that are listening. By talking to teachers, we hands down heard that teachers fundamentally love to teach and care deeply about their students, which results in teachers always adapting their practice and trying to figure out how to get through to their students. And those are all the positives, right? But too often, busy work and paper shuffling often get in the way of doing what they love. In particular, I think most teachers have reserved a special place in hell for the copy machine. And they spend a lot of time just having to print copies, passing things out, collecting them, alphabetizing them. And instead of making things easier, tech often gets in the way. So if we look at this slide this is actually from a 2nd grade class. And this is one of the classes that we visited during our research. And this teacher was trying to show students how to turn in their files. It's both awesome and horrible. It's awesome on the one hand that 2nd graders are using Google Apps and doing amazing things in their class, but it's also terrible that it took 6 steps and almost 10 minutes for a 2nd grader to turn in their work to their teacher. After seeing firsthand, we knew that there was work that needed to be done to make it much easier to create and collect assignments seamlessly without having to have these complex diagrams hanging on the walls of classrooms. So instead of going into a room and building a complete, product siloed from what our users needed, we committed to a co-design approach where we have a constant conversation with teachers and students and parents and administrators around the world about their needs. So this is, when we talk about this co-design approach, here's actually the timeline from when we started conducting the research to when we launched Classroom. So throughout our pilots, which you'll see starting in October where we launched alpha and then March when we launched our beta, we ensured we were soliciting feedback from teachers from every single grade, kindergarten all the way through university, every subject, every device type, as well as the teacher's technology sophistication, because that was actually really important. And so one question that came up several times in the form that I sent out prior to this session, and I can see some of it on the Q&A, was best practices for training teachers on how to use Classroom. So one thing that I love to tell is during our pilots, we didn't train any of our teachers because we believe that if the product wasn't easy enough to figure out without training, it was too complicated. Tech, again, should not get in the way of teaching. It should simplify things and make things a lot easier. So this is a great picture of Sister Rosemary DeLauro, who is 83 years old. She teaches at Fontbonne Hall Academy in Brooklyn, New York. And she's been teaching for 62 years. And she helped us validate the assumption that we really didn't need to train our teachers. She had no technology integrated in her class prior to the start of the pilot. Her school had very little technology integrated at all before we started working with them. And they had been previously sending paper memos instead of email. So to give you, I mean, they weren't using Google Apps. They were not using, Classroom wasn't available at that point. So Sister Rosemary's school, Fontbonne, decided to not only pilot Classroom, they also decided to pilot Google Apps for Education at the same time. And some would say that's very daring. As part of the pilot process, we sent a feedback form on the first day to understand how easy it was to get going using Classroom. Again, we didn't train any of the teachers. So what we did was we said, here's classroom.google.com, here's the URL, get going and see if you're able to get started. So Sister Rosemary completed the form, and the first question on our feedback form was, what did you do when you got to classroom.google.com? And Sister Rosemary responded with, I clicked the plus button and I created my class. And our second question was, well, what did you do next? And Sister Rosemary responded, and I kid you not, she said, I went to church and I'd prayed that I'd be able to use the tool. And sure enough, she was. When we visited this school a week later, Sister Rosemary was assigning homework to her students using Classroom. The teachers at Fontbonne Hall Academy found that using Classroom not only saved them significant time in the class, but also it made it a lot easier to use Google Apps. They didn't need to have to learn all the mechanics because Classroom provided that school context for using the tools in their classes. And as you can see from the slide, we conducted the pilot, we made the announcement that we were building Classroom, and we launched it in August of 2014 and have been super psyched with the outpouring of enthusiasm and the use of the product. And one thing that I really want to point out, and if you listen to anything from this presentation, is that our team is not trying to revolutionize education. We're trying to empower teachers with the right tools so that they can revolutionize education. And it's about making it a lot easier to use technology in the classroom and really empowering those teachers to do amazing things, because it's so awesome to be able to go into a class and see the technology in the background and things just working and kids learning. So I'm gonna transition. So that was our brief history lesson for today. And we are gonna move on to how to actually use Classroom. I know that there were a lot of people that just wanted a quick overview based on the form. So I'm gonna do a quick 101 and you can follow along. There's screenshots to make it easy to follow along. So this is the Getting Started page. And we're gonna do this quick walkthrough. So the first thing that you would do is you'd go up to the plus button and you would click Create Class. So what you're doing here is you're entering class information, including the subject and the period or section. You don't have to, you have to name the class, but you don't have to enter the additional information. And then you click Create. And on the next slide, what you're doing is you're gonna add your students. So you can simply add students from your domain or a contact list, or they can join with a code. We have also given you the ability, if you have a Google group, you can add the group of students to make it really easy. And we also announced on March 31st that coming soon, you'll be able to create classes for schools that have split domains. So if teachers are in one domain and students are another, coming soon, you'll actually be able to create classroom classes and not have to all be in the same domain, which is really exciting. So on this page, you can see there's a class code, so you can give your students a unique code to enter it. You can also click the blue invite button, and which you can see, hopefully you can see my mouse. You can click the blue invite, and you can simply add your students there. This is also what we like to call mission control. Students, you can control who can post and comment on the class stream. Some teachers allow anyone to be able to post, some restrict it so that students can only comment on existing posts that the teacher creates, or they have it so that students can't comment at all. So this is where you would both add your students and then also control the commenting in your class. So if we go to the next slide, what you're seeing here is actually the student view. So what I've tried to do is show you both the teacher and student simultaneously so you get the feel for what students see. So students can also add themselves to classes by entering the unique code that you just saw on the previous screen. So they copy the code, they also click the plus button, and they enter the code. One question that I see a lot is, are students allowed to create classes? And that's completely up to what the administrators and teachers decide. You can make it so that students can create classes, or you can restrict that so that only verified teachers can actually create classes. So again, you just click the plus button and you enter that class code. So going to the next step, we added co-teacher on April 21st, which was like one of the #1 feature requests. And so you can simply, on the About page, you can add other teachers. So whether that be, a co-teacher, a TA, reading specialist, you name it, you can add those teachers right here on that About page, and that's what the left red box shows. You can also add any additional class resources to the About page, and so that's what the right red box is. So things like a class syllabus, additional study materials. You could also see a number of reading assignments or interesting content resources. You can put all of that there, and students can access that at any time. There's also a link to the class drive folder, which we'll talk a little bit more about what goes into that drive folder in a sec. So one of the core functionalities, if you'll remember, is to be able to create and collect assignments easily and paperlessly. So this is a view of the assignment functionality in Classroom. So at the top, there's a quick title. In the middle, you can add a description. It's optional. And you'll see there's a couple of different red boxes that I want to call out. So the first is you can attach any number of materials to your assignment. So you could upload materials from your hard drive. You can attach files from Google Drive. So that would be Google Docs, spreadsheets, presentations. You can add a YouTube video. So if you were to just click the YouTube video, you could search for a video without actually having to open up a new tab and search for the video. You can do it right from the assignment widget. And then you can also add links. And one of the common things that I see with the link option is teachers are creating Google Forms and using the hyperlink functionality and linking to the form. So you can actually assign forms to your class. To the right, you can also you can create an assignment for multiple classes. So instead of having to complete, let's say I taught 5 classes of English, I only have to create the assignment once, and I can add that to the remaining 4 classes just by simply clicking the additional periods that I want to add. If you look again over to the right, so in this case, on this screenshot, you'll see there's the fossil assignment. And I have the option to make a copy for each student. There are 3 different options that I can select. One is students can view a file. So what I see a lot of is teachers will, if they want their students to read something but not edit something, they'll select students can view file. If students should be able to edit, so a lot of times a teacher will create a study guide template and want the whole class to collaborate together, or you could imagine a discussion happening. Then the teacher would select students can edit file, and so everyone could collaborate in real time. And then the third, which is usually when I hear round of applause, unfortunately I can't hear any of you, it's make a copy for each student. And make a copy for each student is literally like going to the copy machine, except you don't have to battle it, and it makes a copy for each student. When that happens, a copy of the assignment template is created. The student's name is attached to the assignment title, so you don't have to worry about random names or the files not being correctly named. Classroom does it for you, and it shares it between the teacher and the student. You as a teacher have access to view student work throughout the entire life cycle of the assignment, not just at the end. As a former teacher myself, I spent so much time grading, and I felt like sometimes my students they just wanted to see the grade and they didn't really care about the feedback, which the feedback is the most important piece. So using the collaborative functionality of Google Docs, you as a teacher can add those comments right from the beginning using the comment functionality in Google Docs, and your students can improve their work along the way, so that by the time that you get it as a teacher, you will have already seen it, and hopefully it's a lot better, and your students have taken into account the feedback. And so that's some functionality with the assignments. The other big feature that we launched on April 21st was the ability to save drafts. We know that teachers need time to plan, and so we heard from a lot of teachers that they wanted to be able to create assignments and announcements and be able to save it and assign it at a later date. So you can see the bottom right, the last red box, is the ability to save it as a draft, and you can assign it at a later time. And you'll notice on all of these slides, I've included the relevant Help Center articles so that you can really get the step-by-step instruction for how to do this in case you're just getting started to using Classroom. Okay, so this is what the student sees. So the student will see their assignment on the class stream. You can see this says due tomorrow, and all the student has to do is click open in order to access their assignment. So when the student clicks open, they get their, and in this case, because we had selected make a copy, the student has their own copy and can begin editing. And again, the teacher can provide that comment, the comments all the way through the entire life cycle of the assignment. The other unique functionality is teacher or students can actually, they have a turn-in button in Google Docs. The turn-in button doesn't exist for any other platform except Classroom. And this actually came from a group of 8th graders during our pilot. They said, you know, Jen, I don't understand why there isn't just a turn-in button in Google Docs. And we're like, you know what, that's a great idea. So we added the turn-in button to make it really easy to for students just when they're finished to click turn in, and then it automatically turns in their assignment into Classroom, and the teacher can see it. Anecdotally, teachers have said that it's really helped students remember to complete and turn in their assignments. They're not worried about trying to find a printer right before class or just forgetting to bring it from home. They can access their files anywhere at any time, both on the mobile Android and iOS app, which launched in January, or they can access it via the web in a library or a computer lab if they forgot something. So the next slide shows teachers can see how many students have completed an assignment. So this is the assignment page view. So you can see here, so I have the option, I can follow up with my students. So I could click basically to figure out who had completed it or who hadn't. So if my students didn't turn something in, I can simply click the ones who hadn't turned it in and click email, and I can follow up with all of those students really seamlessly. I also don't have to keep track of who completed it. Classroom tells that for me. So it always shows me the turn-in counts of who completed it and who didn't. Teachers can then provide grades or feedback and comments to students right from this page. So again, you could do that. You can provide those comments throughout the entire life cycle. You can also add them at the end. And we have a private comment functionality between teacher and student. One thing that happens when the students turn in their work is that the permission settings on the document change automatically. So a lot of teachers are concerned that students would be able to continue to edit after they turned in their work. So students can still view their assignments, but they can't edit it. You as a teacher have access to edit and provide comments and feedback. When you return the assignment to the student, they regain the ability to edit their assignment. And so you can ensure that your students aren't editing it past the due date. Students are able to unsubmit and resubmit, but again, if they unsubmit and miss the due date, then it is marked late, and it's up to you how you want to grade. One thing that I see a lot through the feedback button in the product is that teachers think that we created some arbitrary point scale. You can actually change the point values on the page. And apparently a lot of people don't see that. So you can actually select any number of points that you want your assignment to be out of. If you use a scale of 1 to 4, you can simply put 4 as the point value and grade against that. You can also see in the middle, you can see the submission history of when the student completed an assignment and the timestamp as well. So I also wanted to show the view on the mobile app. So we have classroom apps in both Android and iOS. And on May 6th, so last week, or this past week, I guess, technically, we announced that you can create assignments and grade via the apps, which was a huge request from teachers. We were really excited to be able to launch that this week, and I've seen a lot of great feedback from teachers. So this is just another screenshot of that view. You can see again who completed the assignment, who didn't, and you can simply see you can see the student work. The grades are saved, so you can toggle through and grade the student assignments and then return all from your tablet or phone. So this was actually a big request from students as well, as they wanted one place to be able to see all of their assignments and not have to look through the stream. So there's actually an assignments page which shows all the upcoming assignments, anything that's late, and you can filter by your class or you can see all of your assignments at once. So in this view, you can see it's right now, these are all the assignments that the student needs to complete or hasn't completed. And if they were to click on the Done tab, those would be all of the assignments that they've completed. And they could see all of their teacher feedback as well as the grades that they would have received. So it's a great way for students to keep track of their assignments. Another thing that I see a lot come up in the forum and through the feedback button is, what happens if there's not an actual submission to the assignment? So for example, if an assignment is like read chapter 7, can I create those types of assignments? And the answer is yes, you can create those types of assignments. You simply just create the assignment like normal. You don't attach anything, and all the student has to do is click mark as done, and it checks it off, and it goes to their done tab here on the student assignment page. And the nice thing is we heard from a lot of teachers that you also wanted a single destination to see all the assignments across all of your classes. And so you can use the assignments page to keep track of what assignments need to be reviewed. And this also shows the status of the assignment, so who turned it in, who didn't. And then once you've reviewed and provided feedback, you can mark it as reviewed, and that would the assignment would move over to the reviewed tab. So it's a great way in one snapshot to see all the assignments. You can filter by all classes or by individual and have one place to go to manage that. So while all this is happening, the third pillar of Classroom is to really make it easy to stay organized, both for teachers and students. So when you as a teacher create a Classroom class, a Google Drive folder is automatically created. And when you create assignments, a folder for that assignment for the teacher is created and automatically organized in the Classroom folder. Students just have a folder for each of their class, and the teachers have subfolders for each assignment that they create. So when a student turns in their assignment via Classroom, the assignment is automatically organized into the correct assignment folder for the teacher. So teachers don't have to worry about which folder it is or students accessing that folder. It's completely restricted to just the teacher, and the students have all of their work in their folder. One question that I do get is, well, what happens if I have students turn it into the folder directly? The reality is, in order for Classroom to be updated, you want to have your students turn in their work via Classroom, and then the organization happens. Another question that I get often is, well, what happens? Can I restructure the folder structure in Drive? And the answer is yes, just don't delete your Classroom folder. And you can organize your assignments the way that you want. We take a first pass by creating that folder for each assignment, but if you want to group them into units, by all means, you can move your assignment folders around, and it won't disrupt the student view. The students just have one folder. So I'm going to pause there for a second. And I'm going to look at the questions. And it looks like the number one question that we have so far is, when will we get a way to provide parent access? So you can actually provide parents, you can share student work via Google Docs. We have a lot of, we get a lot of requests on ParentVue, and what we're doing right now is spending time with teachers, similarly to how we started classroom research in the beginning, is talking to a lot of teachers, talking to a lot of parents to better understand what it is that teachers want to give access to. So whether that be assignments or the actual student work or just a view for parent-teacher conferences. So we're spending time right now researching, but we don't ever comment on an ETA for when those features will actually be available. I would say if it's something that you really want to see, please click the send feedback button in Google Classroom. It's under the question mark and click send feedback. I read every single piece of feedback that comes in. I'm not even kidding. And we prioritize accordingly. And then we often follow up and ask follow-up questions. So we do really care about teacher feedback and student feedback. So please submit it and tell us what you want to see with parent access. Well, it looks like, I don't think there's an extra person who has a mic on now. Do students need a Gmail account or any other type of account that requires them to remember an extra user ID and password? So your Google account is what you use to access Classroom. It's the same Google account that you would access Gmail, Google Docs. It's the same account. You do not have to enable Gmail in order to use Classroom, and that's a common myth. A lot of teachers think that they have to have Gmail in order to use Classroom, and you just need a Google account. You can disable Gmail or not turn Gmail on for your students, and all your students would have to do is go to classroom.google.com to check their schoolwork or their assignments. So it's not a separate account. Many schools use digital content from publishers. Can you address ingesting third-party publisher content into Google Classroom? That's a great question. Again, we want to, in order to enable that to happen, we need a Classroom API. And we are spending a lot of time talking to developers and publishers to understand how we could enable that. We do want to make it really easy for you to create those assignments. We know that you're using a lot of other work or a lot of other content from a lot of other sources. And so we're spending time with developers as we speak. We've been doing that for the past year. It's and want to make sure that we get it right. So it's definitely something that's, that we're really conscious of and want to make it a good experience. And I think that answers all of the questions for now. So moving along, I wanted to share some best practices in real life examples. There was a lot of requests for some 101s, or 101 and 201. So beginner and advanced. And there was a lot of questions around grade level and how to use Classroom at different grades. So I'm going to quickly show you this slide, and it's showing the use of different apps and tablets and Chromebooks with younger kids. So one thing that was really crystal clear and continues to be crystal clear is that Classroom works really well across all grades. So as I mentioned, and why I gave you that history lesson, was that we really tested Classroom kindergarten all the way through university to make sure that Classroom really worked. So I call this section Mythbusters. So one question that I get a lot is, isn't Classroom too hard to use with elementary students? And the answer is no. Elementary classes around the world are using Classroom, and teachers have been incredibly innovative with their lessons. We've seen everything from teachers creating picture books using Google Drawing or Google Slides. The teacher will create a template and make a copy for each student so that they can actually create their own story. The nice thing is that the interface of Classroom is actually very, it's pretty simple, and the buttons are fairly big. So it makes it easy for the teacher to point out specific things. And I will tell you, having that turn in button in Google Docs is a lifesaver for elementary teachers. All they have to teach their students is click turn in, and they can automatically turn in their work to their teacher. And if you'll remember from the slide, we had that second grade class. It saved their class alone about 10 or 15 minutes just on turning in the assignments. It made it super seamless. One really cool thing that I've seen with a lot of elementary teachers is they create a number of classes based on student levels or subjects. And they can break the students up so that they can assign different work and really personalize learning. I've seen some elementary teachers that have up to 30 classes, and they break it out by reading group or math group and make it really easy to, to personalize that learning experience. I've also seen teachers create assignments and have basically reading instruction happen through Classroom. So the teacher will instruct their students to use an app like Explain Everything to practice their reading. So instead of having to sit each student down during class, you can have them read into their tablets, record that reading, or record them reading, and then the student can turn in that audio file into Classroom. And so instead of sitting in the back one-on-one with a student, you can actually listen to those audio files later and provide more instruction during class. And we've seen a lot of elementary teachers start to use that, and it's been really cool to see. The other thing that I hear a lot from elementary teachers is, well, I have all of these worksheets and they're not in Google Docs. Can I still use them? So yes, you can. So if you have them on your computer, you can simply upload them. You don't have to convert the files in order to create an assignment. You can also use the Google Drive Sync tool and simply drag all of those files in one place, and it'll automatically upload to the cloud. And so when you're ready to create that assignment, you can simply create it without even having to think of converting it. So next myth buster is, is Classroom really only used for homework? And the answer is no. This is a picture of Nicole Marinello. She was actually one of our pilot teachers. She teaches English. And she used Classroom and Google Apps for Education and Google Hangouts so that one of her students who was out sick for an extended period of time didn't miss any schoolwork. So Nicole would actually, she'd dial into a Hangout and broadcast that to her student. Her student would watch from the comforts of her couch. And then when there was student work, the student would jump on a Hangout with her group and got all of her assignments via Classroom. So the student didn't miss anything. We also see, we saw a lot on Twitter during the winter, particularly our Northeast teachers who used Classroom during the brutal winter so that their students didn't miss any precious class time. Let's just say that the students weren't too thrilled and went to Twitter saying that they no longer had snow days thanks to Google Classroom. But it's a great tool because you can assign videos and you could almost just assign your lecture, and so students could just watch from home just like they were in class and could participate even though they weren't at school. We also see teachers and professors that teach online courses are either conducting their lectures using Hangouts on Air and then adding the link to the broadcast, similar to what we're doing today with this Hangout on Air. They'd add that to an announcement in class, and the students could watch from the class stream. They just click the link and it opens up a new tab. And so that they could see the lecture virtually, and then the teacher could still create assignments and announcements like normal using Classroom. So it's a really cool way to engage your students, again, using the whole Google Apps for Education platform, not just Classroom. Okay, and then the next slide. This was actually one of the teacher memes that came for that was sent out for Teacher Appreciation Week. I just thought it was really cute. But a lot of times I get the question, well, I can't really use Classroom. I'm a math teacher. And you can actually do a lot with Classroom if you're a math teacher. You can simply, let's say you've done a whole lesson or you've lectured on the board and you've written out a lot of math on the whiteboard or chalkboard or smartboard. You can actually take a picture of your class lecture notes and post them to the stream so that your students can access them. You can create a Google Slides presentation and add all of the commonly used symbols that you would need for math or equations. And you could add that to your About page on the classroom resource page. And your students could access that. So it makes it really easy if you are using Google Docs or Google Presentations that the students don't have to go and create that equation or symbol bank. It's all right there. The other thing that I see is teachers will create math manipulatives using Google Presentations. Again, because you can upload symbols or images into it. And they will create assignments or in-class assignments or homework assignments and create a copy for each student. So each student would get their own math manipulative presentation and could create it and turn it in accordingly. We've also seen, I've been in a lot of classes lately where teachers are having students use apps like Explain Everything or Notability to annotate or record themselves walking through a math problem. So students can turn these audio files, they could do their homework and on their screen show their teacher their work and talk out loud and explain the math problem. And if they have questions, they can ask the question while it's being recorded. And then they can turn in those audio files because it saves to Google Drive. So they can turn in those files with their homework. And you as a teacher could listen along and see where your students are getting stuck during their homework. The other cool thing is if you have a flipped classroom model, you could create YouTube tutorials and assign them for homework. So your students could watch at your own pace and really, do the problems and work things out on their own. And then you could do in-class assignments via Classroom or without Classroom when they come back to school the next day. So the next slide is, I hear a lot of, oh, grading's really tough on a computer. So I hear a lot of like, oh, grading multiple choice just takes up too much time. So I think one thing, and you also want to, I hear a lot of teachers wanting to be able to create easy exit surveys. So you can actually use Google Forms to create a survey and use the add-on Flubru to automatically grade it. So you simply create the form and you add the link in Classroom to your assignment. So again, remember that widget, you have the hyperlink. You assign your Google form using the hyperlink. And I know a couple of people asked this in the form for this session. You add the hyperlink to the form, and then your students complete the form, and then they mark their assignment as done in Classroom so that you as a teacher know that the assignment is complete. And it moves from the student's assignment page from to do to done. Then if you're using Flubru, which is an add-on, you can automatically have their responses graded. So instead of having to spend the time, manually looking at multiple choice answers, Flubru will do the grading for you, and you can spend more time figuring out where your students missed so that you could do follow-up lessons or training. I hear a lot of like, well, my school has a mandatory grade book. I don't know how to get my grades out of Classroom. It takes too much time. So you can actually download a CSV file and upload them to your school's gradebook to make it really easy to transfer those. You could also open two browsers. Most people don't think of a split screen, but you could create two browsers. And you have one browser with your Classroom grades and one browser with your school grades, and you can make that easy. We know that there's opportunity to make that workflow better. If you have ideas, please send us feedback. Using the send feedback button in Classroom. I hear a lot of, well, I'd really like to be able to provide more meaningful feedback to my students, but typing or writing takes too much time. Well, you could use Kaizena, which is a Google Apps add-on, and that allows you to add voice comments to your students' submitted work. So your students submit their work through Classroom. You open up their Google Doc, for example, and you click add-ons and you click Kaizena. And you start speaking the comments that you want to share with your students. And when you return the student work, your teacher or your students can actually listen to the audio comments that you've provided. They show up like little comments like normal in Google Docs, but it's a great way to be able to provide more meaningful feedback to your students. You can also use suggest edits, which is a huge, powerful feature that launched in Google Docs this year. It's like effectively marking up a paper with a red pen, but you can do that in Google Docs instead of just sending comments. The other thing is I hear, well, I grade on a rubric. I want to be able to attach a rubric to my students' work. So if you want to do that, you can simply create a new Google Doc for that student, add the rubric, grab the link, make sure it's shared with the student, and you can paste the link into the private comments of the private comment section on the student assignment page for a specific assignment for a student. And you can simply send that rubric back. We've seen a number of teachers that are using that, and that was actually a best practice I saw on Twitter. So the next slide is, I hear a lot of this. And I hear, you know, is Classroom only being used by K-12 schools, right? Wrong. If you're familiar with Alice Keeler, who is an incredible educator, Google certified teacher, she's also very active on Twitter, promoting a lot of Google Classroom stuff. She has a lot of really great best practices. She's actually a college professor. She uses Classroom all the time. This is a couple of pictures and a quote from one of our Classroom users, Chris Huntley, who's an associate professor at Fairfield University. And one of the strong reasons that he uses Classroom is because his students expect everything to be online and, you know, 100% and interactive. And so Classroom allows them to do the work like they want without the technology getting in the way. And so we're really seeing the use of Classroom being demanded by a lot of students. They want to use Gmail. They want to be able to use Docs and Drive because they can access it from any device. And so we see a lot of college professors using Classroom as a result. And then finally, I just wanted to share some, before we go to questions, I wanted to share a couple of best practices and things as well of where you can go to get help. So for us, we really listen to all the feedback that comes in. I promise you, we read every single feedback that's submitted through the Send Feedback button. So on Twitter, please make sure you're using the hashtag Google Classroom. That's a way for us to go through and filter. If you need help, make sure you attach the help hashtag on your tweet. And also, if you have a feature request, I will not look at any, I'll read your tweet, but if you don't send it through the Send Feedback button, I can't guarantee that it'll get read. So make sure that if you do have a feature request that you are using the Send Feedback button. We also have 2 places that you can go to get help. We have a Classroom product forum that is being looked after not only by myself, but also we have a number of expert educators that have been trained in Google Classroom and can answer your questions. You usually get a response within a matter of hours. To access that, all you have to do is click the question mark in the bottom right corner of Classroom, and you'll see a Get Help, Ask a Question, or Send Feedback. So Ask a Question takes you directly to the product forum. Get Help takes you directly to the Classroom Help Center. And so you can look at all the Help Center articles. There's a number of resources on there. And if you want to send us feature requests, you can simply click Send Feedback, and that goes directly to my team. So I'm going to stop presenting, and I'm happy to take questions from everyone on my team. We just wanted to say thank you so much for using Classroom. We really appreciate it. We love seeing all of the excitement and outpouring of excitement on Twitter. So keep it up, and I'll go to questions. So if you have a question, you can ask it using the Q&A functionality. Okay, so how can I share my screen with my students as I'm teaching? For example, if I'm teaching a small reading group and my students not understand a word and I want to give them a visual, for example, the word awning. So when I pull up a picture of an awning, is there a way they can see my screen? So there isn't a present mode from Classroom. You could take a screenshot and actually snag it, which is a popular Chrome app, you could use Snagit and then assign that as an announcement so that your students could see that and then have a record of it. That would be one way to do that. You could also, I don't know if you have a way to present from your laptop, but that would be the other way. But there isn't a present mode in Classroom. Let's see. We've already answered parents and the Gmail question and the content one. See if there are other questions. Most teachers track student grades progress in a student information system. Can you address how teachers can use Google Classroom grades in their student information system without manually entering grades into the system? So I briefly touched on that in terms of the best practices. You can download a CSV file. You can export it, your grades, and upload that. Most student information systems will take a CSV file, so you can upload them without having to do that. We know that this is still a pain point, and again, we want to make sure that it's really seamless and easy to use Classroom. And we want to take out some of those manual steps, so we're looking at ways that we could better integrate either with SISs or making it much easier to extract your grades out of Classroom. The nice thing is your students can see all of their grades in Classroom, and they can see all of the feedback. So hopefully you wouldn't have to, export all the time every day, and you could just do it for the major midterms or end of year, depending on how your school sets up. If there are specific things that you want to see, please click send feedback. Will I share my presentation? I'll try to share some of it. Some of the slides we don't typically share, but I'll try to share as much as I can. There are a lot of really great resources on Twitter, and we also have we answer a lot of these questions in the product forum, so you could also do a search in the product forum for a lot of this. How can I tell if my district signed up to use this? I'm unable to use anything at this time. So the one thing that you need to make sure is if you have a school account that's been given to you, check to see if it's a Google Apps for Education account. So in order to use Classroom, you have to be a Google Apps for Education school. And if Classroom is automatically turned on, you should be able to go to classroom.google.com and automatically access Classroom. And if not, you should talk to your IT admin and see if your IT admin is willing to either sign up for Google Apps for Education or turn Classroom on. It's really simple. All it is a click of on or off. What is the name of Speaking Comments add-on? It's called Kaizena, and it's an add-on in Google Docs. So just look in the Google Docs add-on section, and you should be able to find it. Does the iPad app have the same functionality as the Chromebook? So the iPad app has a lot of really great functionality. So students, it's the same. Students can take pictures. Actually, there's a lot of mobile first functionality. So students could take pictures with their iPhone or their iPad and attach pictures to their assignment. We've seen really cool assignments where they're working on an experiment in a science class or working on a dissection, and the teacher has them snap a picture and either attach it to the stream or turn it in for their assignment. So you can do a lot of really great things with the Classroom, iPad, and Android app. And teachers can create assignments now. They can view student work and grade student work. So it's very similar to the web. Let's see what other questions there are. Sorry if some of the slides were blurry. I don't know if it was a rendering issue. The images are small, but you can literally go through step by step all of the walkthrough using the Help Center. There's also a number of, if you search Twitter, there's a lot of screen sharing and video tutorials that you can access that are probably far better than what I just provided you. Let's see. So far, I don't see anything. So I work with my grade level team very closely. Is there a way to share work we created as a team with coworkers who can use the activities in docs? Yeah, I mean, you could create a number of templates and collaborate together. I see a lot of professional development happening in classrooms, so a lot of professional development trainings or resources and whatnot are used, are done through Classroom. And whether the training is on Classroom or not, Classroom is a really great resource to do that. You can also create a number of templates together using Google Docs and collaborate, and then you can go and assign those to each of your classes. So yes, you know, Classroom really takes advantage of the collaborative nature of Google Apps, and so by all means, it's a great tool and resource to be able to share with your teachers. Let's see. Long time looking for the API. I've not received answers after application. So yes, like I mentioned, we're meeting with a lot of developers to better understand what they need and what teachers and administrators would like to see with an API. So we're spending a lot of time doing the research, and we don't have any details on when that would be available or if that would be available. We definitely want to build one, but we want to make sure we do it right. What about parent and admin concerns about privacy and security? There is a really detailed website that outlines all the Google Apps for Education privacy and security policy. It's something that we take very seriously, and it's on our trust and safety site, and you can simply see everything listed, and it'll have everything that you need and questions, and it's great. It's a great parent resource as well. Definitely recommend seeing that. Can I tell when a folder has been changed? So you would see when a folder is created, it's automatically created with the assignment name via Classroom. If you change that, you would know if you changed the assignment folder name, but automatically we create it with the assignment name, and it's automatically added to the Classroom folder. So you would just see the timestamp of when they were created, and you could also see the history and the activity stream for those drive files or folders, so you could see if anything was changed. Let's see. I don't think that there are really any others. Hopefully the audio got better. I'm sorry if there was a lot of feedback. I will give these presentations a lot, so hopefully we can do another few of these. And I'll keep the form open in case anyone has additional questions. Okay, I'm just going to go back. I'm going to review once more, see if there's any other questions that got voted to the top. I think we've gone through everything that was asked. So, let's see. Just looking for, if you have any more questions, make sure you add them. There was a question on where can I find suggest edits. So it's actually just in Google Docs. If you go to the right corner of your Google Docs, there's an option. It'll show whether you're viewing, you're editing, and then there's suggest edits. All you do is click the drop down. You also could do a Google search in the Google Docs Help Center, and you could see that as well, and get the step-by-step instructions. But it's a really great feature, and teachers love using it. See if there's any other. I think someone asked for my Twitter ID. It's just @Jen C. Miller. And I try to answer as many questions there as that's humanly possible. If you have questions, though, please use the Classroom product forum, because we have a lot of really great experts that are there to answer your questions. Upload videos. So you can attach videos, images, any number of files from your hard drive or Google Docs right to the stream. So you can simply do that already today. And like I mentioned, you can use YouTube without even having to go to YouTube. You can just click the YouTube icon in the announcement or the assignment and assign it. Let's see. Are there any others that got voted up? One, will Google Classroom provide a plagiarism checker? If that's a feature that you want to see, please click send feedback. That's really like how we prioritize a lot of our requests, is we look to see what teachers and students and administrators are asking for. So if plagiarism detection is something that you want to see, to be honest, it hasn't come through a lot through the feedback button. So if it's something you want to see, make sure you send that request. See if there's anything else. I think that's pretty much it. I just want to say thank you again for giving up time on your Saturday. You know, the best part of my day is getting to talk to teachers and students and visiting schools around the world. I was just in Africa this past week visiting a Google Apps for Education school. So, you know, we love, again, we think of our product, we're co-designing with teachers, and we want to make sure that we get it right. And so I just want to say, you know, thanks very much for all of your time. And I hope this presentation was helpful. And if you have questions, you know, please send them our way. And just in parting, you know, I want to really highlight, you know, our team is not trying to revolutionize education. We're trying to empower teachers with the right set of tools. And we want to make using technology a lot easier in the classroom. So if you have ideas or suggestions or pain points, please click that send feedback button, and we'll review it and hopefully prioritize. So thanks very much. Have a great rest of your weekend.